Welcome everyone to GeoHug. So I'm Jess from Prospectus and CoreSafe, and I'm your virtual host today. So this week's rockstar is Jeff Haworth. So Jeff is the Geological Survey of Western Australia's Executive Director, and he'll be discussing how they're reprioritising their 2020 and 2021 work program to help aid with economic recovery and stimulate the exploration industry. But thank you so much again, Jeff, for joining us. It's really great to have you on today.
Thanks, Jess. My name's Jeff Haworth. I'm the Executive Director of the Geological Survey of Western Australia, and today I'm going to describe the survey's role in assisting the West Australian Government's COVID-19 economic recovery. Basically, the outline of the presentation is for me to cover off on what exactly the Accelerated Geoscience program is, some of the other financial incentives that have been given to the resources sector by the West Australian Government, including the Joe Lord Core Library extension in Kalgoorlie, contributing to the replacement of the Kamika microprobe at the John Delator, that might help, John Delator Centre. Okay, so let me start with the video and then I'll skip through the two slides I've just done. Okay, so here we are on the slide I was just talking about. Well, I got up to the Kamika. We'll now also talk about the $5 million increase in the exploration incentive scheme, as well as some studies that we're doing around hydrogen. So for most people looking at the resources sector, especially in Western Australia, everyone saw how the iron ore and the gold industries were basically booming with increased prices and increased production through the COVID-19 pandemic. However, it did have an impact on other explorers, especially juniors and METS companies who were hit hard. A recent AMEC report showed 72% of iron ore explorers had no investment, and half the METS companies had ceased exploration activities. Further, share processes for over half these companies had dropped from 25 to 50%. And on a more personal note, this year was the first year, I think, ever that the Geological Survey did not have a field season, sending our geologists out. So we looked at how we could help the industry get back up on its feet. And by using our extensive pre-competitive geoscience data sets, our outstanding rock and paleontology collection, the organisation will aid economic recovery and stimulate the exploration industry. We will look at delivering new interpretive data sets across all areas of geoscience in key regions of the state where work is currently underway. This will accelerate the understanding of the region's geology and mineral prospectivity. At the same time, of course, the survey will continue to provide its key statutory and regulatory business functions and other core projects essential for the economic recovery. The modified program for 2020-21 will be structured around two main themes. These streams will create and add value to the resource sector through data-driven exploration. The two streams are the Accelerated Geoscience Program, which is a program of accelerated geoscience data synthesis and delivery with new or emerging mineral potential in areas of critical minerals prospectivity. And the second stream is around business improvement, which will be a series of short-term, big-win data synthesis projects that will increase mineral prospectivity across the state with pre-existing geoscience data sets that will be integrated for delivery in ways which can be used by exploration companies to generate new exploration targets. Before I get into the accelerated program, I guess it's worthwhile to acknowledge that most industry hears of what the Geological Survey is going to do, where it will work, And then they go away for 3 years waiting for reports to be finally written by the surveys and put out. This process is to get data that will be developed into reports and interpretations, but get the data out there faster. So it's a total change in the way that we deliver our information. To give you some more information on what exactly is under the accelerated program, we have basically broken this into 4 main projects. The first is the publication of existing data into GIS layers, data integration and analysis around the Yilgarn Craton, a statewide critical minerals prospectivity study, and looking at energy systems, including petroleum, geothermal, and carbon capture and storage. As many of you know, the Yilgarn Craton is one of Western Australia's most prospective regions and contains significant deposits of gold, nickel, lithium, copper, zinc, iron ore, tantalum, aluminium, and uranium. Recently, however, high-grade gold and nickel discoveries in the Craton's far eastern margin, i.e. Grua, Tropicana, and Neil, and in the southwestern margins, Julimar, have shown that these 2 poorly exposed and geologically not well understood regions are likely to be as prospective as the Craton's interior, i.e. the eastern goldfields. Despite both regions being covered by a thick blanket of regolith, the Geological Survey holds a vast amount of geoscientific data relating to the bedrock and regional geology, with the potential of uncovering significant new mineral deposits. The minerals industry is increasingly aware that the new Tier 1 discoveries are likely to be found under deep cover. So we're working to the Uncover Plan, and the Accelerated Geoscience Program will deliver new integrated geoscience data sets for the southwestern and far eastern Yilgarn Craton margins. The program will also incorporate results of ongoing work in the eastern goldfields and perform new analysis on archive samples, which will accelerate understanding of these regions and will define new areas of high mineral prospectivity. The statewide critical minerals prospectivity, as I mentioned earlier, was the critical minerals people who really got smacked around with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's also a fact that the state and federal governments have outlined a list of minerals that are deemed critical for emerging high-tech applications and which are considered essential for the economic and industrial development over the next decade. Western Australia is well placed to capitalise on increased demand for critical minerals as the transition moves globally to low carbon technologies. Knowledge of the geological addresses of where these deposits are likely to be located not only reveals emerging exploration plays, but allows the government the foresight to manage land for strategic industrial purposes, such as downstream processing. The aim of this project is to catalogue the known critical minerals resources of the state, to better understand the mineral systems in which they occur and the associated alteration systems. These genetic associations can then be explored in the existing Geological Survey datasets to provide a series of prospectivity maps for individual critical minerals. The resultants aims to stimulate and increase investment in the critical mineral sector by defining new exploration targets and releasing new parts of the state for exploration. And finally, energy systems. This project will investigate the prospectivity of the state's potential energy resources, which includes low carbon technology and geothermal projects. The petroleum industry has been one of the most affected by the COVID-19 of the resources sector, having a simultaneous supply and demand shock caused by an oil price war that coincided with the start of the pandemic. This project aims to produce a graphic summary of the state's well data in addition to other GIS layers that will directly benefit petroleum exploration. In other initiatives related to decarbonisation, we will also be looking at CO2 geosequestration and hydrogen storage. The results will be published online as GIS layers available in the current GSWA systems, and within 3 what we're calling geological exploration packages, which will be standalone. Those 3 will be the southwestern Yilgarn, the east and the critical minerals GEPs. These standalone packages will facilitate use for all, from prospectors to Tier 1 companies, and announcements of these will be made using LinkedIn. Business improvement is a series of short-term big win data synthesis projects that aim to increase mineral prospectivity across the state by integrating our pre-existing geoscience datasets and delivering them in ways which can be utilised by companies, exploration companies. This would include making accessible and machine learnable the state's over $100 billion value databases. So how's this all going to look? How will we deliver? As I mentioned before, it will be delivered online through existing systems, through our geoscience data portal known as geoview.wa, as well as for petroleum data in our WAPIMS data packages. However, the data will also be released as standalone data packages that can be used and interrogated offline. The main objective of the program is to use and analyse pre-existing geoscience data sets rather than collect new data. The aim is to deliver a number of new and novel data compilations, derivative spatial data sets that will ultimately speak to the fertility of the state for a range of commodities. The following slides are just some examples of the data sets that we plan to release. For example, extensive isotopic data sets, including whole rock, neodymium, zircon, hafnium, and oxygen data sets, will be released as contoured isotopic maps that will highlight new juvenile additions to the crust, and these regions will be prospective for a variety of commodities. The Geological Survey is in the process of unlocking the full value of the company-generated statutory soil geochemistry and drill holes database. The data is currently being harmonised and will be used to produce a series of data layers that shows enrichments of key metals and elements in the soils and the drill holes across the state. As many of you know, Western Australia is covered by an extensive blanket of soil and regolith. Key to exploring through this cover is an understanding of the regolith composition, thickness and extent. This statewide residual erosional depositional, or RED map, not only will aid explorers to sample the correct regolith medium, but it will also show the state's distribution of outcrop. From our petroleum and energy systems, we plan to release an Energy Systems Atlas, which will contain a range of data layers that provide information on the state's potential energy resources, including the low-carbon technology and geothermal projects, as well as I mentioned, decarbonisation, CO2 sequestration and hydrogen storage. These layers will include, for example, contoured structure maps like the one you see here, and contoured heat flow maps, as well as maps of the hydrocarbon source rocks, reservoirs and seals, to name just a few. Moving from the accelerated program to some of the other funding, as has been announced by the Premier earlier this year, $7 million in funding has been allocated to expand the Joe Lord Core Library in Kalgoorlie. This core library is already at capacity, and so this expansion is sorely required, and I know that the people of Kalgoorlie were very pleased to hear about this allocation of funding. The world-class facility stores samples that contain valuable geoscientific information from exploration companies and others seeking new petroleum and mineral discoveries. Researchers and explorers can inspect the samples and review results to reduce the technical and financial risk of exploration activities. The extension will provide better access, more space, and improved facilities to view and analyse the drill cores. We have two purpose-built drill core libraries in Western Australia, the Joe Lord facility, as I've mentioned, in Kalgoorlie, and the Carlisle facility based in Perth. Collaborative research with other government and universities have greatly advanced our understanding of the geology and resources of Western Australia. The state government's contribution of $3.2 million will secure a 5 contribution from the Commonwealth to funding to enable the purchase of a new state-of-the-art Kamika 1300 ion microprobe for the John DeLader Centre at Curtin University. The new instrument will replace an existing ion microprobe at Curtin, which has operated for nearly 27 years. While the existing instrument has revolutionised the understanding of mineral deposits and provided Western Australia with a unique competitive advantage in attracting resource exploration, the machine is no longer fully operational. The new microprobe instrument is next generation. It will be the only one in Australia and one of only 2 in the world, and will revolutionise our understanding of how and when the state's key mineral deposits were formed. This cutting-edge technology will aid the discovery of the next generation of mineral deposits and help to ensure the sustainability of the state's resource sector. An additional $5 million has been allocated to the Exploration Incentive Scheme. This money will increase funding of the EIS to $15 million in the 2020-21 financial year, which will boost the successful co-funded drilling program. I'm sure just the recent announcement that was published on Tuesday in the West Australian industry is already taking advantage of that, with $6.38 million worth of proposed projects coming out of the round 22 applications. Additionally, the funding will accelerate the acquisition of airborne electromagnetic data, from the southern half of the state, which will complement the work that has been done by Geoscience Australia in the northern part of the state and the country. The data from the airborne electromagnetic will be used for testing the presence of critical battery minerals, especially around nickel, which has been shown through Julimar just recently, with them doing AEM over their area, and it's also useful for identifying water channels. The government has also invested a total of $22 million into a renewable hydrogen future, which includes $1 million for studies into hydrogen storage, which will be supervised by the Geological Survey. Underground hydrogen storage does not significantly differ from natural gas storage. However, hydrogen presents its own unique issues and will have to be handled adequately to provide tightness during underground storage, transport, and withdrawal. I guess the analogue to this is the Mondara gas storage and Tabrigi gas storage, which is used for natural gas storage for domestic gas use in Western Australia. The studies that we will undertake will evaluate structures for underground hydrogen storage in Western Australia and will be based on detailed geological analysis, taking geological and engineering criteria into account, and basically we'll be focusing on depleted gas fields and oil fields. We will look at possible salts, but it has been identified over here that adequate salt formations are actually a long way from any infrastructure that would be worthwhile for hydrogen storage, but we will be looking at those as well. So finally, I'd like to thank you for watching this explanation of the Geological Survey's exciting work program over the coming 12 months. Updates will be made available through LinkedIn and Facebook, and I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm a newcomer here, but just for Jeff, so last month, Rick Valenta from University of Queensland showed these guys what he was doing with the Mount Isa Atlas in Queensland as a way of making it available through the web browser for the entire data set to be made available for people to look at. I wonder whether in Western Australia, are you doing something similar, or are you going the traditional route of, having files that people need to download and like opening it up to people who are less technically knowledgeable about what the data means and making it in a much, more user-friendly environment, if you like?
Thanks for that, Steve. Yeah, look, the answer to that is we are looking very closely at what Queensland's doing. Queensland, as you're well aware, has spent a fair amount of money just recently upgrading their data systems, moving to data lakes. They've moved into, for instance, AWS, Amazon's web service. We are looking at the same sort of thing. We are talking with Queensland on how we can best implement that kind of move. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, we are looking at different ways of doing our work than the traditional way. Most people are used to us saying, "Oh, we're going to do some work on the Patterson," and then you never hear from us for 5 years or something like that. Our idea is, in that 5 years, we've obviously been collecting data, working on that data, interpreting the data. Our idea now, and my philosophy, is get the data out fast so companies can use it quickly and use it constructively while we're still working on our interpretation. So, yes, we are looking very carefully at the Queensland model and hoping to replicate it where we can.
Great. There's one that's come through the chat. Are many new 3D data sets being released as part of this initiative?
Yes, we will. We've had a very strong program over the last 4 or 5 years around 3D modelling. So some 3D data sets have been released, but not part of the accelerated program. But certainly for the energy area, we will be looking at 3D modelling, as well as some of the mineral systems. We're moving more towards 3D modelling.
Is there any more WA funding for AusLAMP or AusArray?
Okay. Our contribution to AusLAMP is continuing, and we are actually looking at getting some more passive seismic sensors. We're looking, I guess, as a rule, I can say it would not be too much of a secret that once we've completed the AEM, we are really struggling to justify any further aerial geophysics acquisition, but we are seeing ourselves doing more ground-based acquisition of geophysics, mainly seismic, be it either passive or active. So yes, we will still be looking at funding both AusArray and AusLAMP in the future.
Hey Jessica, can you hear me now?
Yes, yep.
The chat function might be a bit buggy, but I had a quick question. Just the CRC Leam and Regolith erosional map comments. That was really interesting, and I was just wondering whether there's other states looking into that, and whether there's any possible federal coordination could happen with that, because that's pretty important as far as which regolith to sample and sampling that correctly.
Yes. So I guess other geological surveys are looking at this. I think the mapping undercover is the big challenge for all geological surveys in Australia. The MinEx CRC, of course, is quite involved, and we heard from Andrew Bailey last week around the coil tube drilling, which, of course, coming from the oil industry, I'm quite familiar with. And also what the MinEx CRC is not just the National Drilling Initiative, but also data initiatives. And I think most people are now looking at doing more around petrophysics, which we collected from drill holes. So certainly Geological Survey New South Wales, South Australia, Northern Territory, ourselves are active participants in the MinEx CRC. Part of our program, the accelerated program here, is hopefully to accelerate our opportunities of drilling under the NDI, hopefully late 2021 to test some of the things that we're coming up with over here. So yes, there is a national coordination only through the MINEX CRC, and the Exploring for the Future funding, the $120 odd million that the Commonwealth has awarded to Geoscience Australia to continue that program. It's also looking very, very much at how to explore beneath the regolith.
Oh, thanks very much for that. That answered my question very much.
Thank you so much for joining, and I really appreciate you coming on, and it was great to hear what you guys are up to over there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
If people want to contact me, if they come up with questions in later on, feel free to email me.
Excellent. Thank you so much.